South Africa's workforce is constantly facing increasing pressures and demands to deliver bigger, better and faster than ever before. This is according to Quest Staffing Solutions CEO Kay Vittee. She says living in this fast-paced society, which often requires personal sacrifice in the name of business success, can take its toll on the health and well-being of the workforce. Kay is with us this evening to tell us more. Welcome to RiseFM, Kay.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, and good evening to all the listeners.
Now, Kay, how important is one's health, whether it be mentally or physically, when in the workplace and carrying out your duties?
So a short answer, it is extremely important. Because if we are not well, it means we cannot be productive. It means that we face the consequence of being retrenched or dismissed because we are just not producing what we are contracted to do when we are not well.
So what would you say are some of the contributing factors when it comes to health issues in the workforce?
One of the primary things is that certainly coping mechanisms, maybe the pressures of work, the demand for constant performance and output, but notwithstanding that, it's also our external factors. There's crime, there's impact on finances, there's social drivers. All of that plays out in our life and our lifestyle. And those can be a contributing factor.
Which common health issues would you say are associated with workplace stress?
So one of the primary things certainly is depression. And I'll tell you this, I'll qualify it. So recently there was a study done by the London School of Economics. And South Africa was one of the countries. Amidst that was Brazil, Canada, China, Japan, the USA. And it was found that nearly 25.6% of South Africans suffer from depression, which costs the economy, in a global economy with all these countries aggregated, just over 246 billion. But if you do the comparative, the 25.6% versus the other countries at the 15%, tells you how amplified that is in our current work environment.
So looking at all of these figures, who is more likely to bear the brunt of these issues, whether it be depression or even physical ailments?
If you take from a gender perspective, and I don't take away, women are confronted. We are one of the biggest representation, should be certainly, in society. We're just over 67%. Doesn't naturally mirror that in the workplace. I mean, women are fairly underrepresented. In fact, I think less than 53% of us are in a formal working environment. However, if you look at our roles, that has the biggest playing factor. We are still the caregivers. We still we give birth, we bear children. We interrupt our careers. We still have our domestic roles. And so women seem to be one of the biggest populace that is being affected, particularly from a healthcare perspective.
Now, you've obviously mentioned the different roles that women play, but why do you think then they go above and beyond in the workplace whilst they still have all these other roles that they need to fulfill?
Sometimes we don't always have the right support. We don't have partner support, spousal support, or societal support. Means we take on. If a child is ill, 10 to 1, the woman, the mother will have to go and see to the needs of the child. So our roles don't get separated. We are the primary caregivers in most of our homes. Many of us are single women having children, meaning that, again, we don't have the partner spousal support, which means we have to step up. It means that the onus of providing the economic means to our families rests on us. And I think that certainly has a playing factor.
And I mean, this sounds like a recipe for someone getting overworked or even reaching a state of burnout. So what are the detrimental effects of such in the workplace?
So the consequence is high absenteeism, lack of productivity, and then almost being surpassed. So if there is a person, particularly let's say a woman in this case, who is a strong performer, and has a good aspiration, career, prospects, but if her health is not there and she is highly consumed or burnt out, as we use the term, it means her career will take a step back. It means that she will not be able to showcase her performance and what she's capable of, simply because there are healthcare issues that she needs to attend to. And so it does. It will have an impact in the work and the career life.
So in terms of the employer themselves, what can they do to then be a support structure to ensure that they get maximum output from their employees and that they don't burn out?
Yes. If you look at an estimated cost, absenteeism and a lack of productivity costs our economy in excess of 16 billion annually. So it is in the interest of employers to be responsible in that regard and to make sure they have the right wellness programs. They are sensitized when their staff are not well. They look at absenteeism patterns. They get involved. They try to understand what support can they give, as they also making leave compulsory, making sure people are not burning out, making sure that the workload is properly adjusted, that there's not over bias on certain good individuals. And that does happen. When somebody is really good, they seem to carry the greater burden, is to make sure that there's a fair percentage of spread in terms of workers. But more important is making people that there's no stigma. If somebody is not well, is that there's due care, and that if there's even depression is real, is to make sure that our workforce are not marginalized, that they feel a sense of comfort and safety when they come out with their healthcare issues. And there's a responsible employer that is willing to ensure that they embrace that and they meet those needs. And also making sure there's access to healthcare. Certain, healthcare has become quite unaffordable, if one needs to know. So employers need to make sure that their healthcare, their medical aid products, are they linked and aligned to their workforce and their ability to afford such healthcare?
Now, when you talk about stigmas, there's quite a few in the workplace that I just want to touch on. I mean, we have employers who will avoid employing women because they're emotional and have all of this baggage, so they would say, or would avoid anyone with any mental health issues, whether it be depression. So how do we then move away from these stigmas where such people are associated with negativity into a place where employers can embrace and see the positive that such people can bring to the company?
Definitely from an employee perspective, that there's legal recourse. Is that no employer can prejudice anyone if it is not an inherent requirement. So if there's a question about health, you don't have to disclose that, because how does it meet the requirements and the competencies of the job? So I could be not well, hypothetically, I could be diabetic, but I could still fulfill my job very well because I've got it under control. I don't have to disclose my health issue unless I know it's going to impact me and my organization. Then that should be a voluntary disclosure. That's from an employee perspective. From an employer perspective, I believe is that if you create a conducive environment where every single employee can thrive and there is proper care, wellness programs that can support women, even if you are unwell, it's to make sure there's proper sick days, there's good advocacy, good information on proper diet, making sure that you do have a canteen, that there's proper nutrition. We have a dual responsibility as employers and an employees in a workplace.
Now, as employees, what can we do to ensure that our health is not compromised?
I think it's, October is International Breast Care Awareness Month. It's Women's Healthcare Month. There's Health Awareness Month. And I think we want to raise the challenge personally that we become aware of our health, that we don't ignore symptoms that is not comfortable, that we go and seek medical advice. From a personal perspective, we must do our regular checkups, whatever they are, make sure our cholesterol, is in check, our diabetes, our sugar intake. We get regular exercise. We have enough fresh air. We eat healthy as best we can. And then from an employer perspective is to advocate for health, to make sure there's wellness days, make sure that your staff have access to solutions that can ensure that they've got good knowledge and the environment that they work on is not overly burdened.
That was Quest Staffing Solutions CEO Vittee. You're still listening to RiseFM and